call the meeting to order for the afternoon of October 25th, 2022. And for those of you watching this meeting at home, I am not Sam Licardo. No need to adjust your television. Tony, can we have a roll call, please?
Jimenez, Perales, Cohen, Carrasco,
Present.
Davis,
Here.
Esparza,
Here.
Arenas,
Here.
Foley,
Here.
Mahan,
Here.
Jones,
Present.
Licardo, Perales, Cohen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to ask my colleague, Councilmember Carrasco, to join me at the podium, and we will recognize and proclaim Arts and Humanities Month.
Shouldn't I do the invocation first, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. First mistake of the day. Today, the invocation will be provided by Beth Kill. Is that pretty much Kill? Kyle, author of Haunted San Jose. Councilmember Foley will tell us more.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm really excited to have this presentation for you today, and it's a little departure from an invocation. You're not going to hear someone evoke words of philosophy, but there may be some spirits involved in what she has to tell us. So for today's invocation, I've invited Elizabeth Kyle, Beth, known by her neighbors, which is me, as Beth, a seventh-generation resident of California and District 9. Beth is an English teacher at Branham High School in San Jose and lives in Willow Glen with her family. I've asked her here today as she recently released a book titled Haunted San Jose, which details the long history of ghostly tales associated with our city. As a lifelong resident of San Jose, she's deeply familiar with the places she's written about, from driving Hicks Road as a teenager to attending graduate school at San Jose State. She has been interested in ghost stories since she was a child and has explored haunted locations and graveyards in nearly all 50 states. Since this is the last council meeting before Halloween, I thought it would be fun to have Beth read a passage from her book. And I have provided a copy of the book to all of my colleagues and the city manager and city attorney who are up here, so everyone can read it and share it. With that, I'd like to introduce Beth Kyle to read a portion of her new book. Happy Halloween.
Thank you, Councilmember Foley. So in my book, I have tried to blend history and storytelling, and the story I'll be sharing with you is from the New Almaden area of San Jose. Hacienda Cemetery is the eternal home of some New Almaden residents, both minors and prominent community members. The cemetery, dating to the early 1850s, is thought to be the final resting place of about 50 people. Today, due to age and vandalism, a number of the graves are unmarked. In 1928, a musician named Ben Black bought some of the land owned by the mining company near the hacienda and attempted to subdivide it. When he couldn't get the necessary permits to extend Bertram Road through the cemetery, he took matters into his own hands, piloting a bulldozer in the middle of the night and cutting a swath directly through the cemetery and over a number of occupied graves. Today, the cemetery is divided in two on either side of the road, and it's said that when you drive down that road, the bumps you pass over are graves. In 1974, the cemetery was deeded to the California Pioneers of Santa Clara County, under whose care it remains today. Vandalism and bodies under the roadway aren't the only unfortunate elements associated with this tiny plot of land. Bertram Road, the narrow lane that runs on the south side of Alamitos Creek, is named after Richard Bertram Barrett, also called Bert. At the age of 13, Bert lost his left arm in a hunting accident. In accordance with laws and custom of the time, his arm was required to be given a proper burial and thus was interred in Hacienda Cemetery. At the grave, a wooden marker surrounded by a white picket fence reads, Richard Bertram Bert Barrett, His arm lies here. 1893. May it rest in peace. Bert himself lived for another 66 years, working as chief sanitation engineer for Santa Clara County and passing away in 1957. The rest of his body, sans left arm, is interred in Oak Hill Memorial Park, 11 miles away from New Almaden, where he rests peacefully. But what of that arm? Legend has it that on Halloween night and other evenings when the moon is full, the arm of Bert Barrett comes back to life and crawls out of its lonely grave, clawing its way across the ground in search of the rest of its body. Its fingers scramble to find purchase in the dirt, and it scales the picket fence with the ease of a 13-year-old boy. Using the light of the moon to guide its path, the disembodied limb tries to steer a course down the hilly lanes of New Almaden, perhaps hoping to reanimate the rest of its body when it finds it. The Barrett's rented home is across Alamitos Creek from the cemetery and is known as Cottage Number 5. While the home doesn't seem to have any legends associated with it, it's not difficult to imagine Bert Barrett's disembodied arm stopping by its old home on its jaunt down the road to Oak Hill in San Jose. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm just happy to hear that it's in South San Jose and not West San Jose.
Thank you, Beth. And so concludes my series of invocations in October, but I'm really happy to be able to highlight some local talent. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, again, for the second time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Carrasco to join me at the podium, and we will recognize and proclaim Arts and Humanities Month.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm Magdalena Carrasco, and I have the pleasure of representing our beautiful and talented east side of San Jose. And besides being a council member, I'm also proud to serve as the City Council liaison to the Arts Commission. What a joy it is to proclaim October as National Arts and Humanities Month. We recognize National Arts and Humanities Month as a time to uplift our art community, as well as honor those creatives that have made a long-standing visionary impact on our city of San Jose. There's much to celebrate. Our diversity is what makes us unique to the world. We are home to talented musicians, dancers, muralists, poets, photographers, illustrators, sculptors, visionaries, designers, the whole scope of folks who have presented, actually blessed us with their talent. It's because of them that our residents and our immigrant community from all around the world can feel seen, find community, and feel at home here in our great city. How does one actually capture in words the feelings of walking up to the Mexican Heritage Plaza as young artists are honing in on their skills and their talent under the guidance of the School of Arts and Culture? Avenida de los Altares, Fiesta del Mariachi, Viva Calle, we find incredible historic and cultural richness all on one historic block. The curious wonder of walking downtown. Music, live music, greeting us at the Plaza de Cesar Chavez. Beautiful dancers at Circle of the Palms connected through City Dance. Unbelievable artwork and programs birthed from Macla fill the Sofa district with life. Japantown. We're immediately filled with awe-inspiring murals that represent a vibrant community and tell us about the history of the Japanese here in our city. It's through its art that San Jose has become a destination. And especially after the pandemic, we have used art as a way to create community, to extend love for one another, and embrace the pain and vulnerability by providing space to heal. I'm proud to share that this Friday, October 28th, we will be unveiling a mural for Kayla Salazar, a victim of the Gilroy Garlic shooting. Grateful for all the departments and the amazing artistic Jessica Sabogal who came together to present this mural and aid in the healing process for our families. In the arts, we recognize our strength and find the soul of San Jose. I want to thank our entire art community for sharing their talent. You bring us together, you lift us up, and encapsulate the human experience through an artistic language that resonates with each and every one of us. It's my great honor to present today's proclamation to our very own Office of Economic Development, applause, applause, and Cultural Affairs, led by Director Nancy Klein and Deputy Director Carrie Adams Hapner. The OCA fosters community through process building that defines creative placemaking, expanding the community's access to public space and impacting economic and visual aspects of the city of San Jose. The OCA is a champion of the arts in San Jose, ensuring that our arts community is taken care of through grant making, special events, public art, and programs aimed at celebrating the arts and creative expression. I want to thank all of you for all of the work that you do. Truly, you bring San Jose to life, and I'm happy to be able to tour the city with my children who are inspired by you. I want to just add that the OCA granted almost $4 million through 120 grants to the arts and cultural organizations and creative entrepreneurs with an enormous collective creative impact. Again, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Vice Mayor to present our proclamation. Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you, and a special thank you to the mayor and council, but particularly you, Councilmember Carrasco, who has been a passionate and committed supporter and hero for our efforts. That really means a lot to us. And then also just to remind that the arts in San Jose are our heart, our culture, our identity, and very much our conscious when we need to be reminded of what matters. So it's with great appreciation that we look to the arts to bring more sense of place, activation, to becoming the city and the county, the people who we already are and want to show more of. So with that, also want to make sure to thank the Arts Commission, which is stewarding our efforts. And last but not least, the staff from OCA. They're already back to hundreds of events, and they pour their heart and soul and a lot of their personal time. Thank you.
I would like now to invite Councilmember Foley to join me at the podium, and we will recognize and proclaim Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm honored to recognize October as Hindu Heritage Month. I'm proud to acknowledge the significant contributions made by Hindu Americans living in San Jose and seek to increase awareness and understanding of the Hindu American community. October is significant because it's the birth month of Mahatma Gandhi and is often when major Hindu holidays such as Diwali are celebrated. In fact, Diwali's 5-day celebration began yesterday. Diwali, known as the Festival of Lights, includes the illumination of lights, candles, and sparklers to symbolize the victory of good over evil, light over darkness, and knowledge over ignorance. The city of San Jose has been influenced by the extraordinary cultural, ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity of its residents. I'd like to acknowledge Assemblymember Ash Kalra, who originally brought forth the celebration of this month in the city of San Jose when he served on the council a few years back. We use this opportunity to acknowledge the ways we have benefited from Hindu Americans through classical Indian art, dance, music, meditation, yoga, literature, community service, and so much more. In fact, it's hard pressed to see where they haven't influenced our lives. Hindu Americans promote the ideals of tolerance, pluralism, and religious freedom, all of which are inherent to their beliefs and respect the diversity of all faiths. This popularly recited Hindu invocation that is translated in English demonstrates this concern for universal kinship and well-being. And I quote, "May all beings be happy, may all beings be healthy, may all beings experience prosperity, may none in the world suffer." Against the backdrop of this understanding of equality and unity, the Hindu world has been able to embrace the reality of diversity through its philosophy of pluralism. Every being, with their varying likes and dislikes, their unique personalities, and their different cultures, not only connect with one another in their unique ways, but connect with others in their own unique and individual ways. Today, I have Milen Makwana and Samir Kalra here to accept this proclamation on behalf of the Hindu American residents of San Jose. Samir is Managing Director of the Hindu American Foundation, and Milen is a community volunteer for Hindu Education Foundation and a resident of City Council District 9. Vice Mayor Jones, would you please present the recognition to Milen Makwana and Samir Kalra, who is joining us virtually, and Milen will start by accepting the proclamation and then turn it over to Samir. Vice Mayor, just promoted you.
On behalf of Hindu Education Foundation and several other Hindu American organizations and dharmic organizations, I would like to thank Council Member Foley and the entire San Jose City Council for this proclamation on occasion of Hindu Heritage Month. As rightly pointed out by Foley, this is this cannot come at a more better time. Across the world, 1.2 billion Hindus are celebrating the Hindu festival of Deepavali. So Hindus follow diverse set of beliefs and practices. Hindus across the world are living together, thriving together, and coexisting with others in harmony due to the principles of dharma. So dharma is a Sanskrit non-translatable, but the closest meaning is a way of righteousness and duty and kind of following one's own path. So in short, dharma is an art and science of living together. We feel at America, we feel at home because America is equally diverse and respects diversity. And San Jose City being the prime example, to quote from my own experience, when I moved to San Jose in our new house a few years back, we were welcomed by our American neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Nicoletta, with open arms. Mr. Nicoletta is a veteran, and his lovely wife, Diana, they are one of the most nicest human beings I would have ever known on this earth. I would like to end my short talk with a prayer, which council member also rightly quoted. However, I would like to go one level deep into the meaning of it. So as the prayer, it's a world prayer, which most of the Hindus say it for everyone, not only just for Hindus, but this is for everyone across, even it goes across the universe. It goes like this. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma kashit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So, as meaning, the short meaning is let everyone be happy, healthy, and let us see good and auspiciousness in others, and let there be peace, peace, and peace. So, this why do Hindus chant peace 3 times, right? So, peace or Shanti is the natural state of any being. Disturbances are either caused by others or us directly or indirectly. For example, peace already existed in this place until we came and took over, right? And Hindus chant Shanti 3 times in order to emphasize their intense desire for peace. All obstacles, sorrows, or problems are caused due to 3 sources. First is Adi Daivika, which is the unseen divine forces which causes things like flood, volcanic eruptions, and earthquake. I'm sure most of us would have felt it or read about the earthquake which just happened. So that's the first, unseen divine forces. Second, Adi Bhautika. These are the known factors around us which causes accidents, disease due to human contact, think COVID, pollution, war, crimes. Last but not the least, adhyatmic, for ourselves, to remove any illness from us and also to pacify any emotions in our mind like anger, anxiety, frustration. Hence, Hindus chant Shanti Shanti 3 times. The first Shanti, if you all noticed, I chanted it louder because it was for the unseen divine forces. Second Shanti is softer for the people around us. And third Shanti for myself. Thank you and God bless America.
Thank you all so much. I wish I could have been there with you all in person today, but as you can probably see, I have a sick daughter with me at home today, taking care of her. So I'm joining you all virtually, but really want to thank Council Member Foley, the Vice Mayor, Mayor, and the entire City Council for bestowing this honor on the Hindu American community. It's been a great privilege to see how the Bay Area has grown, and particularly San Jose. As someone who is born and raised in the Bay Area, I've really enjoyed seeing the diversity grow over the years, and especially seeing the Hindu American community grow and contribute so much to San Jose and the broader Bay Area. You mentioned that in the prior San Jose City Council, under the leadership of now State Assembly Member Ash Kalra, had first introduced this resolution or proclamation through the city. And even before that, in 2013, former State Senate Majority Leader Ellen Corbett had first recognized Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month at the state level, at the state capitol in Sacramento. So from there, we've come a long way, and the Hindu American community has contributed a lot. At the same time, we are also facing a number of challenges. Right here in Santa Clara County, we're facing hate crimes. There was a recent string of targeted robberies and assaults against Hindu American women here in Santa Clara County. Thanks to the efforts of the Santa Clara County DA's office, they have been charged as hate crimes. We've seen similar incidents in neighboring Alameda County and Fremont and other parts of the country, as well as the increase in online Hindu phobia, which is perpetuating negative stereotypes against Hindu Americans. So it's great to see a proclamation like this helping to dispel stereotypes, helping to increase awareness, education, and consistent with Diwali, in bringing light over darkness and knowledge over ignorance. Thank you again to Council Member Foley and the entire San Jose City Council for this honor and recognizing October as Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samir and Milan. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I'd like to ask Councilmember Mahan to please join me at the podium, and we will recognize and proclaim Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As the well, first let me say I'm joined by Khalid Tawfiq, our CIO, Chief Information Officer, Marcelo Paredo, our Chief Information Security Officer, and other members of our IT department. Thank you all for the work you do and for being up here. As chair of the Smart Cities and Services Improvements Committee, I'm pleased to join the Vice Mayor and my colleagues on the City Council to proclaim the month of October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month to encourage residents to build positive habits that will ensure the security of their information at home, work, and school. Since 2004, Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a joint effort between Homeland Security, states, and local governments to build awareness around the critical impacts cyber threats have on individuals and organizations. Technology is so ingrained in our daily life today that if we are not careful, it can create risk and cause harm. This year's theme is See Yourself in Cyber. Cities and districts across the country have been compromised while others are under attack. Criminals around the world have different motivations to inflict harm. Local governments are working hard to defend against myriad threats. Some facts for reference. Most cybersecurity disasters start with a person clicking on a suspicious link. Keep that in mind when checking your email. The impacts and costs of cybersecurity breaches on average in large organizations is approximately $10 million per incident and increasing. The cost of protecting our systems and the number of threat actors continues to grow. And human vigilance remains our #1 tool to protect ourselves and the organizations we are a part of. Learn to recognize phishing scams and be very suspicious of unsolicited emails, phone calls, and flyers. San Jose works all year to build awareness and good cyber hygiene habits. These habits are what matter most, and October is when we pause to recognize the importance of these practices. Remember, the large percentage of compromises come from people being tricked into clicking on, saying, or typing something they shouldn't have. We are in this together. In our personal and work lives, safe practices are vital. So let's work hard to create the new habits needed to secure our technology-intensive world. And I'll present the proclamation of Cybersecurity Awareness Month to Khalid and the team. Thank you. Or I'll let the Vice Mayor do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Mehan. Thank you, Councilmember Mehan, for the for proclamation of Vice Mayor Jones. It is really a pleasure to be here and to be part of bringing awareness for cybersecurity to community and to the public. Unfortunately, the recent attacks and cyber attacks has made the world very sad and very unsafe. We've seen nations attacking other nations and using cyber as a weapon of war and crippling the infrastructure of other nations. We've seen criminals stealing millions of medical records and over $1 billion in cybersecurity funds. It is really brings pleasure to my heart to be here and know that the City Council, the city leadership is taking cybersecurity very seriously and making this an effort to educate, inform, and bring awareness. I'd like to thank Dr. Paredo, our Chief Security Information Officer, and his team for protecting the city and for making San Jose a safe digital city. And thank you for proclaiming October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question for our cybersecurity team. That money that I sent to the Nigerian prince, am I ever going to see that again? Okay, on to orders of the day. Does anyone on the council have any changes to the print agenda? Seeing none, closed session report. City Attorney.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We do not have anything to report out of closed session today.
Thank you. Next is the consent calendar. Are there any items that the council wants to pull from the consent calendar? I have one item that Councilmember Carrasco is pulling. It's item 2.14 for questions and comments. Are there any other items that you want to pull from the consent agenda? And seeing no hands raised, we are going to take public comments for the whole consent agenda, including item 2.14.
Caller 1324.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. As a point of order, Vice Mayor, the public comment on the separate item that's being pulled, that is a separate item which we separately give a public comment on, because that's an item that is being pulled by the council member themselves for discussion, meaning that it's a regular agendized item. That's what it falls under. So am I understanding you correctly in you saying that the comment that I give now is going to be relative to 2.14? That's my question.
You can comment specifically to 2.14 or to the whole other
Well,
items
I'm
on the
aware of
consent
that.
agenda.
I'm aware of that. What I'm saying is that I want a clarification on what you just said. Are you saying that I cannot comment on 2.14 once it's heard?
Okay, Paul, this is Tony Tabor, City Clerk. The item 2.14 is not being pulled for separate consideration. It's only being pulled for council member question and comment. It will not be voted on separately. It will be included in the whole motion. Therefore, this is a 2-minute period to speak on the entire consent calendar, including 2.1.
Got it. That's clear. That's clear. Now, that's a clear explanation. Thank you for that. Okay, I won't need very much time. The only thing that I'd like to really talk about is 2.13, and you're increasing it by $1 million. That's 120%. I mean, you guys are handing out money, millions and millions of dollars on this consent calendar like it's candy. It's not your money. It's our money. And, you know, and you saying that we have absolutely no means or recourse by which to comment on it, you know, is a failure of your obligation as a council member. You represent us. You work for us. You don't work for yourself. And so for you just handing out 120% above what the person is normally being paid on 2.13, I mean, and sit there with a straight face.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the words of Paul on the last item. That was nice to learn. To speak on item 2.14, Division 0 traffic safety issues for the future of King Road. This sounds like a real major project. It's going to really be defining the future of the King Road area between Berryessa and Capitol. And it's going to be transit issues, pedestrian, bicycle. You know, good luck how we talk about the concepts of there's going to be a lot of surveillance and data collection technology involved with this. So a real good luck that this can be a real important project to develop the concepts of how to make it a full community process, what can be open, accountable practices with the technology involved. And it's not just you're building, you know, Vision 0 neighborhood safety, you know, there's a whole series of things involved with neighborhood safety. And that means, you know, open, accountable practices with the tech. I mean, that's how you talk about community harmony. I mean, those are the good practices of our lives. I really hope that, you know, that we're here at the end of a mayoral administration, that our new administration will want to practice those sort of values and bring out, you know, important new concepts towards that goal. To comment on the words of Councilperson Mahan in the previous, at the beginning of the month, the goal of openness and accountability isn't to regulate, but it's to enhance. It's to bring out what is truly our positive selves. And I just really hope we want to make those efforts into the next mayoral administration, whoever will be mayor, and the full city government staff. Thanks a lot.
Back to council.
Thank you, Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Actually, I wanted to just comment on the complete streets of King, which spans all the way from Berryessa all the way down to Capitol Expressway. I think that's a total of 4 council districts. And this is a street that is really at the heart of the east side of San Jose, and I'm glad to see investment that's about to happen. And I understand that the process now is going to be to go out to the community and have these conversations. I think that, you know, as I'm leaving council, the idea that this is going to happen is really fulfilling. I'll say that, because I know how busy this street is all the way up and down, regardless of the district. So I want to thank staff for doing that, and I look forward actually to seeing what the community has to say and the input that will be incorporated into this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. This is a hugely important project, and as Councilmember Carrasco mentioned, it cuts across several council districts. And I know that the Complete Streets Plan and the Movimiento plan, which has been talking to some of the groups, some of the community groups, but if DOT could continue to work with the council offices to ensure that we're not leaving anyone out. This is an extremely dense, very busy stretch. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. Sorry, stretch of road, which is why it's so important to do it. But it also means that we really need to coordinate with the community. But I'm thrilled to see this project move forward. Thank you. That's it. Do I need to make a motion?
Please.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I don't see any other hands raised or request to speak. So, Tony?
Morales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
I see the mayor's here and sitting in my usual spot, so we're going to do a switch here. All right. That's fine.
Oh, yeah, take your chair. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're done with the consent calendar. We're going to go on to land use consent. Item 10.1 is the uncodified, whatever it is, it's not codified ordinance extending land use and historic preservation permits. We'll go first to the public.
I have no hands up.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second for the.
Second.
Obviously, it's not stirring the blood of the council. I don't see any hands. Let's vote.
Morales,
Yes.
Cohen,
No.
Aye.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas, Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye. All right, report of the city manager is next. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have no report today. Thank you.
All right, 3.3 is the award of a contract for our airport new taxiway Victor Phase 1 project. There's no presentation. Let's go to the public.
I have no hands up.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Are there any questions from my colleagues? Nope. Let's vote.
Morales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Roscoe,
Crosco? Oh, aye.
Davis.
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to talk trash. 3.4 is the award of the contract for the large trash capture device installation project Phase 7. We do have a presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Nguyen. I'm a Deputy Director for Public Works, and today I'm going to present to you the large trash capture device installation Phase 7. So as the name implies, this is the 7th time we have a project similar to this. So far, we construct a total of 32 large trash capture devices at various locations in the city. And these devices are being used to capture trash down to 5 millimeter in diameter. And also it can be used to capture sediments, which may contain PCB, mercury, and other pollutants before it reaches the surrounding water bodies. We complete the design for the project in August, and we advertised in September. We received 4 bids. The lowest responsive bidder was KJ Wood Construction. And so this project will be fully funded by Caltrans, and in return, we will receive and treat and remove trash from a total of 125 acres from Caltrans land. Overall, this project will collect trash from 1,200 acres of the land around it, and it will reduce the trash load in the city by another 6.4%. Here's a map showing the locations of these devices. These will be constructed near the end of the storm pipe so that we can capture the trash and other stuff before it reaches out to the creeks and river. In some cases, these are also located near the freeway so that we can also capture the trash coming from Caltrans right of way. And in order to ensure efficiency for these devices, DOT usually go out there prior or during the storm season, and depends on the to inspect these device, and depends on the location. They might have to do that on a monthly basis, or sometimes quarterly or semi-annual basis. And cleaning as well as maintenance activities will then be scheduled following these inspection. This project right now is needed in order for the city to meet the requirement for the new MRP 3.0 that was issued by the Regional Water Board effective July 1st of this year. So at this time, there's a few milestones that we need to pay attention to. Per the new permit, the city will need to be at 90% trash load reduction by June 2023 and 100% by June 2025. So at the completion of this project, we will be at 100% trash load reduction. So we exceed that requirement. However, there's a few things that the new MRP 3.0 have changed. The first is per the new permit, source control action, such as the ban of single-use plastic bag and styrofoam, will no longer be counted toward the credit. And also, starting July 2025, creek cleaning as well as direct discharge trash control program will be phasing out. So for that reason, we will need to focus on building more full trash capture device such as LTC or connector pipe screens. And also, the city will have to continue to implement the on-land trash control action, such as street sweeping and adopt a park, things like that. And then coupling with visual trash assessment in order to meet the term and requirements of the permit. A more detail of the new permit will be presented by ESD staff in the upcoming months. Here are some pictures showing the construction of several past projects. So this is the construction photos for debris separating baffle box that took place on Rock Springs. This is part of phase 6, and we complete the project in summer 2019. Another type of LTC, as you can see here, is the continuous deflective separation. This is part of phase 3, where we build a CDS on Coyote Creek and Fullerton during construction and after it's being used. This project is complete in January 2017. So with that, we would like to recommend the award of the contract to KJ Wood in the amount of $7,488,000, and also approve the construction contingency of 15% for the project. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Let's go to the public.
Caller 1324.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. Thank you for that presentation. Trash, because we have blight, and blight and trash is so associated with the unhoused population. My question to the council is, what kinds of contingencies are you making to accommodate the increase in homelessness? Because that 11% number that came up, that's a lie. I don't know who came up with that lie. I don't know who approved that lie, but it's a lie. It's not true. We didn't increase 11% over COVID. We increased probably exponentially by 5 to that number. And so what my question is what kinds of accommodations are being made for the future unhoused population? Because there's going to be a necessary trash increase in particular areas. And so what in these bids are being, in terms of the logistics, what is being bid into these contracts to accommodate for that? Because what happens is if you don't do that, what you do is you use the blight in order to leverage that politically, in order to get the people's buy-in, in order to basically bum rush these encampments. That's what's happening, and that's what's been happening. So what I'm saying is, why don't we take preventative measures in order to prevent something like that from happening? Thank you.
Back to the council.
Thank you. Are there questions from my colleagues? I had a couple questions if nobody else does. Matthew or anybody else would like to jump in on this. I understand the permit sets certain requirements and gives us credit for some things and not for others. I guess as I look at this, it seems as though we have a permit requirement that primarily rewards us for reducing trash that may be coming from the street or from surface activities in the city, and not really doing a darn thing about the enormous amount of trash that's created when we have human beings living along a creek. And I'm not blaming those human beings, by the way. I know they're there, if anything, but by choice, and or not by choice, rather. And obviously, all of us generate trash. But I'm really concerned that this has us really spending money somewhere other than where the primary source of the problem is. And I guess if you ask me where to spend $7.5 million, it would probably not be on a single device in a single stationary location in the city. I'd probably go say, let's go hire 100 unhoused residents to give them a full-time job cleaning up our creeks, and we could do a whole lot more good in terms of improving the waterway and so forth. And so I'm trying to understand first, is my perception off? I mean, are there things that this permit is, the permit requirements are going to do that'll actually help us focus on where an awful lot of the generation of trash is?
I will have to.
Matthew, I can help you out. I think if
Yeah.
you unless you want to take it. This is Kip behind you. Kip Harkness, Deputy Director, Deputy City Manager of City of San Jose. Mayor, we've actually been starting to wrestle with exactly these questions at the staff level. The new permit has a number of rather complicated requirements that include addressing PCBs and others, and this is where some of the large trash capture comes in, and the work on the creeks is not directly relevant to that because the PCB sources are not along the creeks. It also includes the necessity of an awful lot of work along the creeks where folks are housed or not, as the case may be. And we've got to actually just deferred a T&E report that we want to bring to T&E in December because we realize we need more staff time to start to wrestle with these questions on what are the implications of the permit across public works, across PBCE, environmental services, parks and rec, because we're going to be getting a lot of pressure actually from both sides, both the things like the PCBs that will be dealt with partially by the large trash capture devices and the Water Quality Board and others putting increasing pressure on us around the permit to clean out the creeks with Valley Water and our other partners and keep them clean. So it's probably going to have to be an all of the above kind of answer, but I think we owe you and council a much more detailed understanding of what the new permit requires and what we think the approaches are or could be for you to begin to weigh in on this. So I know that's a little bit of an indirect piece, and maybe somebody else wants to add, but you're right. You put your finger on it. There's an awful lot going on here, including a lot more requirements on both ends.
So thanks for that, Kip. And look, I'm only looking at this anecdotally, so I don't have the depth of understanding that you guys have as you're dealing with this every day. But help me better understand the PCBs. I thought that was primarily a factor of legacy methods of manufacturing piping, and that's where a lot of the PVCs are. Is there another source that's?
There are about 770 different sources, sites have PCBs which are associated with industrial development, and I'm not sure all of the sources, many of them located in North San Jose, which are the catchment areas that we have to worry about most. And that's going to have, the solutions to that are going to have to include both on-site work right at those sites and or potentially large trash capture devices like this that are strategically sited, if you will, in the watersheds of those areas. So part of the reason we actually asked for this to be a presentation and not just come to you without a presentation is to begin to surface these questions and to begin to have to think strategically about these large trash capture devices and also the burdens that would have to be perhaps on some of those individual sites if we don't do these larger pieces.
Right. I'm just disturbed by how the permit requirements have shifted. And look, if I'm wrong on this and we really think there are better ways to stop trash, say at the surface than in the creeks, okay, it would be helpful to have that conversation to understand better. But if we believe that this is really incentivizing less than optimal responses, if our goal is to try to reduce pollution and trash in the creeks, because we're not investing in things like creek cleanups and getting the trash, in the creeks itself or along the creek beds, then are there opportunities for us to think about how do we push back on the agencies, the regulatory agencies? Maybe we get exemptions. Maybe we try to get them to consider alternative approaches to credits, because it seems as though maybe these are regulations that are perhaps optimal for other parts of the country or other parts of the state, but not urbanized areas like ours with large unhoused populations where we know the environmental threat is really much more in the creek. And frankly, I'd like to see lower tech solutions and less capital intensive solutions that would actually help us enable some of these folks to get back on their feet rather than simply investing in large, $7.5 million capital projects, where we got a lot of those going on, but anyway, you understand my point.
I certainly do, and those are exactly some of the questions we want to raise and discuss. Is what are the regulations might be we might be able to push back on or modify? How would we, in the absence of the regulations, think strategically about this,
Yeah.
and do the right thing before we just simply try to comply with complicated set of laws which clearly weren't written with us in mind.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that, and I think the point you make about let's figure out what we think works best, I think is really important. And it's important for us as a city to come up with a game plan about what we think is going to reduce the pollution the most. And I know we have a lot of partners like Save the Bay and others that are very invested in this, and I think a lot of folks who could help us. Councilmember Cohen?
Yeah, thank you. Kip, to kind of continue on some questioning, there are three different ways that water gets into our bay, right? One is effluent from our water treatment plant, which obviously is a separate issue. One are the creeks, water's going straight into the bay from the creeks. This is about what's coming through our storm sewer system, right? So those are kind of two separate and unconnected. When we talk about cleaning the creeks and rivers and the storm sewer, they're somewhat unconnected, right?
Yes and no, and I don't mean to be disingenuous in that. They are considered separate systems, but part of what the interesting discussions that we've been having is that really the way that they're actually subsystems of the same system, I think is the way to think about it. So all of it impacts the bay ultimately. And either it's, to your point, either it's running through pipes completely and it's treated at our regional wastewater facility extremely well, it's running over surfaces and getting to the creeks directly, or it's running through our storm water system. But all of those are interrelated, and part of including in how we fund them and how we operate in them and maintain them. And under the permit, we really have to think of all of those in order to comply with the permit.
Right, and I guess that's my point, is that a lot of what we're dealing with in this particular contract is not water that's going through the creeks, but is water that would coming through the sewers from roads and places that are away from the creeks. Typically, a lot of that stuff is a lot of garbage is getting in through the sewers along the roads and in neighborhoods and other places. So we do need a method to get garbage out of that system as well, right?
Yeah, that's why I think it's ultimately not necessarily all of the above, but there's going to be an array of different things that make sense for each component of the system. One, there'll probably be a handful of interventions that are the right ones for the creeks, a handful that are interventions that are the right ones for the stormwater system, and a handful that we need to think about in terms of the regional wastewater facility.
So this is large item separation. How small does this system filter out?
I'll turn it back to the engineer who actually knows this stuff.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that this is just to treat the storm water. And sanitary sewer have another separate system that goes straight to the plant. So for this storm, we have this device in place in order to capture all of the trash down to 5 millimeters in size.
5 millimeters. So microplastics and things are still getting through and into our water system. It's really the larger garbage that's not being discharged into the bay if we do this.
Yeah, so, well, there's a few heavy stuff we'll be able to settle down, and so we can remove those separately. But you're right, if it's smaller than 5 millimeters, it still has a chance to pass through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if I may add real quick, for this project, because Caltrans is paying in full for the project, so they definitely want us to collect some of the stormwater from their right-of-way. So, reusing of this funding in other areas it might not be in compliance with Caltrans requirement.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Right. Other questions? And help me understand better, because my understanding the permit was that it governed water both in the bay and in our creeks. Am I mistaken?
That's the same permit, yes.
Yeah, it's the same permit. Okay. There's not a separate, yeah. All right, thank you. All right, any other questions? There are not. Do we have a motion on this? Nope.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Let's vote.
Perales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, next up, thank you, gentlemen. Next up, proposed addition to Air Service Support Program. Should we do this together with the public hearing on the new Air Service Support Program for Zip Air? Since we have a presentation, no, we don't have a presentation on either one, do we, John? No, no presentation. All right, let's take it separately. 5.1 is a proposed addition to Air Service Support Program. Let's go to the public.
I have nobody's hands up.
All right, are there any questions? I have one if no one else does, but let's wait for my colleagues to get settled. Okay, I don't see any questions. I'll ask the question then, John, as you're coming down. I'm wondering why we are reducing fees on the short haul domestic. I understand the value of these long haul domestic flights and the international flights, not just for the airport, but for hotels and restaurants and lots of things in our city, considerably less on the short haul. And I know that you've still got some capacity there in the airport, but I'm guessing as the economy, well, who knows what happens with the economy, but I do know as as activity starts to really heat up, we would love to have some of those short haul slots open so that we could use them for domestic and international flights. And I remember just a couple of years ago feeling really as though we were jammed up with a lot of shorter haul flights that we probably would be happy to trade out if we could, if we get more flights to DC, Atlanta, and New York. And so help me understand why we'd want to incentivize the short hauls.
Mr. Mayor, council members, John Aiken, Director of Aviation. The program additions that we're doing right now are basically taking us back to 2018. So for many years, we had the incentive program. We took them out in 2018 because, as you said, we were one of the fastest growing airports in the country. We didn't have to give as much incentives to get new service. In the current condition, I think it's more required on us, again, to start that program up, to entice people to come service. The changes are focused around new carriers.
Yes, no, I saw that.
So we're looking at it from that perspective. The short haul stuff has been in here since the beginning.
Yeah, I understand.
And the short haul is to destinations that aren't currently served. So
Okay.
until you get to 1,200 miles, you have to go to a new place. So Tucson or Winnemucca or whatever, it's a city that we don't serve. So it's not one more to LA. It's not one more to Santa Ana. It's not that kind of stuff. So I think it's still shaped right.
Okay.
We set the mileage so that an additional flight to Minneapolis would qualify because that's good for us and that builds connections. An extra flight to Atlanta or New York would be good. But the short hauls are restricted to the first person to go into that airport.
Okay, and you believe that the value proposition is sufficient for Winnemucca to get a fee reduction? I'm sorry to use that example because I know it's probably not the one you'd pick.
Let's go with Tucson.
Okay.
Winnemucca just
All
popped
right.
in somehow. So Tucson is an airport that we'd be interested in. It's a important city in Arizona. We've had service. We don't have it now. We haven't had it since before COVID.
Right.
So I think that would be something where waiving these fees would be a good thing as a partnership with our airline. They're spending a lot of money, right, to start that service to Tucson. This is us saying we support it. We believe in you. We believe in our community flying to Tucson. So we're putting some money into the game to partner with them.
Okay.
So I think it's still important as long as we maintain that restriction on not additional service to the same town all the time.
Right, and the fiscal return to the airport is sufficient to justify it in your mind.
What's that?
The fiscal return to the airport is sufficient to justify it. Okay.
Yes, because the fees are waived at a lower level. So it's all still money positive to the airport.
Yep, understood. Okay. I appreciate the points. I know at some point, a few years down the road, we may get to the point where we really want those slots, but
I think like we did in 2018, we will dial this back like we've always talked with the council about when it's the right time to slow the incentives and say people are just coming anyways.
Right.
Then we slow that down. I don't think this is the time right now to slow it down.
Okay. Thanks, John. Was there a motion? Not yet. Let's hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, let's vote.
Morales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Davis.
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas.
Yes.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 5.2 is a public hearing for new air service support for Zip Air Tokyo. Very exciting. New flight to Tokyo. Yeah, let's go to the public.
I have no hands.
Okay. Congratulations, John, Mark, and the whole team. This is a great victory for us. I understand this is a subsidiary of Japan Airlines, so they'll have good network to be flying from. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion from Vice Mayor, second by Mahan. Let's vote.
Morales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Davis.
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yeah.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Lori and team are coming down to join us for item 6.1, which is the Clean Energy Resilience Power Procurement Agreements. Welcome, everybody.
While folks are settling in, I'll get us kicked off and then I'll turn it over to the dean. Kip Harkness, Deputy City Manager. Over the last several months, we have brought to City Council a number of complicated and high-dollar community energy items, and over the next several months, we will bring many more. The item today on the Integrated Resource Plan is the framework that pulls all of these together into a coherent whole. So it is worth holding on to this past day and spending some time with it to understand where we're going. It makes great bedtime reading. And the plan you'll see today is based on months of sophisticated iterative stochastic modeling, also called Monte Carlo modeling, that generates hundreds or thousands of possible scenarios and then allows the team to evaluate the most probable or problematic and test various sensitivity assumptions. In addition to the mathematical modeling, this plan has been guided by the deep expertise of staff, consultants, and our community advisory group, and puts forward a realistic path to achieving your ambitious goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. So with that, I'll turn it over to the team who's done the good work on this and our director, Lori Mitchell.
Great, thank you for that, Kip. I'm Lori Mitchell, I'm the Director of Community Energy, and very pleased today to be joined by Jean Soleil. She's our Deputy Director of Power Resources, Cara Knopf, our Senior Power Resource Specialist, and Phil Cornish, also our Senior Power Resource Specialist. So first of all, we just wanted to provide a little bit of detail on what an integrated resource plan is. So this is a very standard plan in the utility industry. It's a long-term planning tool used to meet our regulatory requirements, our local policy goals, and it evaluates our electricity supply and our demand over that long-term time frame to identify resource options to deliver low carbon, reliable, and cost-effective energy to our customers. It's important to note that our integrated resource plan has to be filed every 2 years with the California Public Utilities Commission, and it does require City Council approval before we file this plan. So in terms of some of the main regulatory requirements that it considers how to meet the state's emission reduction targets, as well as the state's renewable portfolio standards and our reliability requirements. And this is used to guide policymaking and decisions around procurement and transmission planning. It also considers our local clean energy policies, so we use this plan to model how we will achieve that carbon neutrality by 2030, as well as our other climate-smart electrification efforts. And important to note that CCAs are locally controlled, and decisions here can be made to benefit our community and advance access to clean energy. So just as a reminder, to date, we have contracted for over 500 megawatts of new renewable and energy storage resources, and we are bringing forward additional recommendations after this item. So the plan considered all of those previous investments and then looked at what do we need to add to it over the years to meet those state and local clean energy goals. So in terms of the timeline, as Kip said, We started this work over a year ago, and then in the spring, we briefed our advisory commission on it. Then we completed the modeling over the summer once the CPUC published their findings and their requirements. And then in September, we presented the findings to our advisory commission and also our risk oversight committee. And today we are seeking city council approval so that we can file the plan on November 1st. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jean Soleil, who will go into more detail over the modeling and some of the findings of the plan.
Good afternoon, council members. So the 2022 CPUC requirements included preparing 2 plans or preparing 1 plan if you opted for the more aggressive of the 2 plans. That's the choice that we took. So one of our portfolios was a portfolio that would get us to our proportional share of emissions from the electricity sector of 30 million metric tons by 2030 and 25 million metric tons by 2035. And how the CPUC came up with these targets is in conversations with the Air Resources Board about the maximum emissions that could come from the electricity sector in order for the state to meet its carbon reduction goals. In addition, we have to forecast our customer demand through 2035, including rooftop solar and electric vehicles. We have to develop a portfolio to meet renewable energy and carbon emission targets, considering the cost, availability, time frame, and needs. And we have to meet state requirements for capacity, that's power plants available to make sure that we can meet our load, renewable power, and carbon-free attributes. We developed 2 portfolios. The first portfolio was the more aggressive of the CPUC portfolios, which would get us to emitting our proportional share of an aggressive portfolio that gets to 30 million metric tons of carbon emissions by 2030 and 25 million metric tons of carbon emissions by 2035. And the second portfolio was the city compliant portfolio, which achieves the city's goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. We did some sensitivity analysis, in particular, backing down solar plus storage, adding wind, and doing the reverse, just to understand how using different proportions of those would affect our portfolio. And what we found is using wind reduces our exposure to price risks, particularly in the evening. Next slide. The modeling findings show a need to aggressively add to our portfolio. This chart shows in the blue what we've already procured. The yellow shows what the CPUC has already directed us to procure. We've been here before you asking you for authority to contract to meet some of those requirements. And then the gray is what we have to do in addition to that, just to meet the more aggressive CPUC case. And the teal finally is what we need to do to be carbon neutral by 2030. Next slide, please. This slide gives you an idea of the proportion of different types of resources. The green is wind, the yellow is solar, the pink is storage, and then on top of that you see some natural gas, which is consistent with the authorization we got from you a couple of weeks ago. For the more aggressive city case, same types of resources, same proportion of resources, but more of all of them except natural gas is the same in both portfolios. Next slide. So important observations. Both portfolios require us to significantly increase our pace of renewable resource procurement. So busy as we may have been in the past 4 years, we're going to have to be a lot busier. We're excited about that. The other important observation is that as we move into this more aggressive phase, we're actually going to have more renewable capacity than we have load. And the reason for that is because the renewables don't generate 24/7. Solar is available during the day. Even with batteries, we can shift that into the evening, but it doesn't generate overnight, whereas wind tends to generate mostly overnight and is strongest in the winter. But the result of having that mixed portfolio and having to have more capacity than we have load is that in certain hours, we will have more generation than we have load, and so we will sell our excess back to the system. And even with that really aggressive amount of renewables, there will be hours during the year when we'll be buying system power. So some reliability considerations. Both portfolios identified the need for 200 megawatts of natural gas. We paired that with storage in order to reduce the amount of emissions from that natural gas. That gas is needed to balance the large amount of intermittent renewables and also to meet our reliability needs. We understand that that's something that's challenging for a city with the aggressive carbon reduction goals that San Jose has, and that's why we're looking for ways to reduce the emissions from those plants to the extent possible, such as pairing them with batteries so they don't have to operate as much, or retrofitting them to burn a blend of green hydrogen and natural gas. And of course, we'll be required to buy carbon offsets anytime that we use the natural gas plants. We'll also be monitoring emerging technologies so that we can find alternative approaches to basically be able to get ourselves away from using natural gas. Next slide. So our recommendation is that we be allowed to submit to the CPUC compliant plan, that we be directed to use the city carbon neutral plan as a guide to meet the city's goals to be carbon neutral by 2030, and that we continue to work with other departments to achieve climate smart goals and a pathway to carbon neutrality by 2030.
Thank you, Jean. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the work putting this together. This is very complex and very important. All right, let's go to the public.
Paul Soto?
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. Yes, thank you for that presentation. I have a few questions. Number one, what is the total megawatt power usage of San Jose just as it is right now? You know, how much power is being used by the city as it stands now? Number two, with the projection of 400,000 residents coming into the city of San Jose that's already been planned by 2040, what is the projected amount of power that is going to be necessary at that particular time? I know those assessments have been made, but none of that was apparent in your presentation. So I'm just looking for what those numbers look like, and also the moral and ethical responsibility of the city to accept that when you have power usage, when you have power storage, you need lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Okay, and those three elements, we're going to be starting wars in other countries in order to control those particular resources, because they're absolutely necessary for battery storage. Okay, so when we're talking about this clean energy projects, we also have to talk about that, because we're not going to sit here and act like we're being morally and ethically responsible for the environment, while at the same time, we're disrupting and corrupting other governments and other people's environments in order to salve our conscience that we are being climate responsible and we're being climate conscious. when really what we're actually doing is we're corrupting other governments and we're corrupting other people's livelihoods and spaces and places. So I'd like some answers to some of those questions. Thank you.
Claire Beekman.
Hi, thanks a lot for the words of Paul. Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I've been, I used the word hand in hand for the previous item about Vision Zero and open accountable practices. That's a process that has to work hand in hand in the future with accountability and neighborhood safety. For this item, the concepts of building our sustainable future along with the concepts of worker rights, that has to be a process that works hand in hand in our future. We always have to be considering those things in our future. As Paul said, I think we consider worker rights issues. We actually work to end the concepts of possible wars that will be forming in the next coming decades over these issues. And it's worker rights issues that can help create a peaceful process to avoid those things. With that all said, this IRP item, this is an item, in 2020 that I got my ideas from. I read into its charts that to me seemed to suggest we may be headed for a possible earthquake and how they were planning for energy issues. But of course, I think since then, I just have been proven wrong. And I've possibly read the statistics wrong. So my fault. I'm really sorry about that. I've been trying to apologize since then, but to note the importance of what this work can offer to our future. You note natural gas use will be heavily on the rise and will have a relationship with renewable energy. What's up in 2024? Aren't we supposed to shift our work in how we think of natural gas issues? And I think that 2024 is the year we start to make adjustments. And those numbers that are continuously rising, shouldn't they be leveling off? And finding new sources of renewable energy to work with. That's an important concept I hope you can talk about.
Back to the council.
All right, thank you. Let's go back to the council for questions. If there are any, Councilmember Cohen.
Yeah, no question. I just want to thank you for the report and for the work and all the modeling that you've done to help us project what we're going to do. And I'm excited to have us. I'm supportive of having us submit the CPUC compliant portfolio while we keep our eye on the prize in San Jose and aim for that carbon neutral portfolio. And I'm glad that we're doing that. So I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you. I just had a couple questions myself, and I want to emphasize or reiterate the thanks from Councilmember Cohen. What this team has done in a short period of time is really tremendous. I was just on stage at the Verge conference where we've got a lot of folks pretty passionate about climate change, and the loudest applause we got is when we talked about what we've already accomplished in terms of being able to provide electricity that's 95% GHG free. And now we're going to create a carbon-free grid 15 years ahead of the state goal. I think that's pretty tremendous. I had a question or two, though, about whether or not, let me just ask the question, whether we have a sense about whether it will cost less money to reduce demand in front of the meter by incentivizing solar and storage, for example, for, let's say we did it for modest income homeowners or for affordable housing, multifamily projects. So could we actually, would it actually cost less money to incentivize that private investment than it costs us to go procure that energy? Or are those subsidies less efficient than just buying the energy ourselves?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's a great question. That's not something that we looked at in this plan, and I think it would depend highly on what that subsidy is. So, generally, utility scale solar right now is pretty cost effective and much more cost effective than behind the meter. But we do know the behind the meter solar is very beneficial because it's generated here locally, so it improves our reliability and also reduces the transmission and distribution costs associated with that. So, I think we need both, but that's certainly something we could study and take a look at in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to some folks at the Clean Energy Commission. They were just showing, or Clean Energy, well, anyway, the organization, and they're just showing me just how stark the cost of distribution and transmission is relative to generation. It's what, 10x, and it's just becoming so apparent that we've got to move to this kind of distributed generation and storage approach. And I'm wondering to what extent maybe we could aid that. And I appreciate that it is much cheaper to get industrial scale solar, but if we're not paying for it, if private homeowners paying for it and they ultimately get a better deal for themselves, I just wonder, is there a source out there? I mean, we know utilities have been subsidizing these things for a long time. Is that something we could discern about whether or not that's a good approach for us?
Sure, it's something that we've looked at in the context of our program's roadmap, and so it's something that we can continue to study there and then bring recommendations to council. It's probably also worth noting in the new Inflation Reduction Act, there's a number of new subsidies for residents and businesses to take advantage of, and certainly can provide information on that. We're working on making sure that information is easily accessible on our webpage for our customers as well.
Thanks, Lori. And then just in terms of, I understand it's really complex. Kip described Monte Carlo analysis, which, I remember reading about in school, and every time my eyes would glaze over. How do we have a sense of the order of scale of cost difference? If we were to decide we were going to get rid of the 200 plus megawatts of gas plus storage, and we went entirely to renewable plus storage. Theoretically, at some cost, we could do that and still have reliable supply, couldn't we?
So we didn't model that exact case because we are concerned about the reliability of that in the short term. Obviously it's something that is very important to us, and, we want to phase out those types of resources in the portfolio, but that is modeling we could take a look at. Right now, I think one of the main concerns is just the duration of the batteries. So right now, the common batteries are 4-hour duration. There are some 8-hour. But even that doesn't get us to overnight. And really the case that we look at from a reliability perspective is that winter day where it's very cloudy, not a lot of solar generation, and so the batteries aren't charging. And if that happens for multiple days, then we get concerned about reliability there. But as John noted, hopefully in the future, there are technologies we can take advantage of to phase out that generation. That's certainly our objective.
Right.
But in terms of meeting the reliability requirements of the plan, that's why it did identify that gas. It wasn't so much a cost issue as a technology issue at this point.
So if storage gets down the cost curve quickly, say in 2 or 3 years, we could deviate from this plan and decide, hey, we're going to pivot and go to a renewable plus storage approach.
Yes, I think we would still need to look at how much solar we would have to pair that with to make sure the batteries can charge on those days in the winter when the days are very short and perhaps overcast, so that they may not provide enough energy to charge those batteries, in particular if that happens multiple days on end. And so that's something that we'd have to take a look at.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Councilmember Mahan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple quick questions. Thank you for all the great work, and excited that we're on a good trajectory right now based on past presentations. Just 2 questions on the IRP. One was, I assume in the IRP we don't actually project costs, but I feel like that's kind of relevant to some of the questions the mayor was just asking. Do we have a sense of what this plan might mean for ratepayers over time? Is that part of the model?
That is part of the model, and that's
Okay.
a very important part of the model of, looking at resources, what are the cost of those resources, and that's why it did select a lot of solar and wind and battery storage, because those technologies are the most cost effective. And, very happy to report very good news here is that in both plans, both the carbon neutral plan and the CPUC compliant plan, very little difference in terms of costs between those two plans, just about 3% difference between those two plans. So that's very, very good news in terms of, achieving our goals. And also good news in that, those technologies are very cost effective, especially in the market that we have now. And so that should lead to very stable rates for ratepayers and not large increases. As the mayor noted, I think where we see increases in the electric sector are more on the distribution and the transmission side than the generation side.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's good to know. And then I noticed in the slides, it seems like we're assuming quite a bit of wind, but then I think I read in the memo that there were some challenges related to procuring wind, and I just wanted to square those two. What does that mean for us in the years ahead?
Yeah, so in terms of California, there's just limited wind development that's available just because of all the great work that the state and CCAs have done over recent years in contracting for that. So our main opportunities are out-of-state wind, and that is reliant on transmission lines coming into the state. And so that could be a potential issue that we'll have to monitor. Hopefully with some of the incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act, that's not an issue. The other type of wind that the modeling looked at is offshore wind, and that isn't something that's been installed here in California yet, but there are some opportunities in the state. But there are definitely some CEQA issues there, as well as some transmission issues depending on where that's sited. And so those are some of the issues. And then another issue we identified with wind is there's a limited number of developers, and we already have quite a bit of wind in our portfolio because of our prior investments, and our risk oversight committee and our risk management policy requires that we don't have too much contracted with any one counterparty. So that's also something that we'll have to manage, over the coming years as we look at different resources.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Councilman Cohen?
Just a follow-up question on the overall plan. Did this plan get updated periodically? Because presumably some of these portfolio opportunities are going to change significantly in the next few years. So what's the process?
It does. By the time we finish it, we almost start again. It has to be filed with the commission every 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to, in 2 years, we'll know a lot more about the wind opportunity particularly. I know that the state just passed a bill to have 30% of its energy generated by wind by 2035 maybe? I forget the year, but that's a significant amount of wind development that we don't know of today. And I know that the federal government just put out for bids on leases of offshore wind off California. So I expect things to change in the next 2 years. So
Right. You're absolutely correct on that. And so as we update the plan, that's a great opportunity to update, the opportunities that we see there.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? See none online either. All right. Do we have a motion?
No.
We do.
Oh.
Okay, let's vote.
Perales? Cohen?
Aye.
Crosco? Davis?
Yes.
Esparza?
Yes.
Arenas?
Yes.
Foley? Mahan?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Liccardo?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now getting to the nitty gritty. Agreements for solar power and battery storage are up next.
I have some late people voting yes. I have, I'll recall Perales,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Lori, would you like to proceed with the presentation on the specific agreements on solar power
Sure.
and storage?
So these agreements are for additional solar power and battery storage. So we're very excited about these. Just as background, this is something we've been talking about a lot over the last few months, is the CPUC's midterm reliability requirements. So there's a number of requirements that they have mandated for us in terms of bringing new resources online. So in response to that, back in February, we issued a request for offer in collaboration with East Bay Community Energy for new clean resources, including renewables and batteries, with an emphasis on projects that could meet those midterm reliability requirements from the Public Utilities Commission. So that was a successful RFO. We received 27 different bidders and 44 projects and shortlisted 10 of those. And today we are here with recommendations on a number of them, and very much important to note that we will return to you with some additional agreements later this year or early next year. So just as background, this is something you've seen many times over the last few months, but it notes our progress to date in meeting those CPUC midterm reliability requirements. So our requirement for 2023 has been met. And we are very close with today's recommendation in meeting our requirements for 2024 and 2025. But you can see we're still a little bit short there, and so we will come back to you with additional recommendations. And then for 2026, through previous council actions, we have met our requirements for that. So the first project, very exciting, it's a battery storage project that will provide resource adequacy. This project's located in San Joaquin County. It will be online next summer by June 1st, and it has a term of 10 years with a total cost of $3.6 million. The other project is located in the same county, in San Joaquin County. It also provides resource adequacy, and it will be online by the summer of 2024. It will operate for 10 years with a total cost of $26 million. A little bit of background about Broad Reach Power. So they're a utility scale independent power producer. They have 250 megawatts of battery storage in operation and 10 gigawatts in their pipeline. At the end of 21, Broad Reach Power received a $400 million equity commitment to accelerate their growth. Important to note that they're not a publicly traded company. Our next recommendation is a Calpine contract. This is also a battery storage contract, so it will provide resource adequacy, and importantly, it will also provide energy generation, so it allows us to direct the battery operations, so we can charge it during those solar hours and then collect the revenues and discharge during those evening hours, which lowers our power procurement costs. So this project will be online in the summer of 2025. It's a 15-year agreement for a total cost of $148.5 million. Just a little bit about Calpine Corporation. They're a full-service energy company. They develop power generation. They own and operate a fleet of gas, geothermal, and now battery storage projects across the US and Canada. 76 power plants in total with a total generation capacity of 26 gigawatts. And important to note that Calpine is a private company and they have public debt. And then finally, we are recommending a replacement project for a solar project that we signed back in 2019. So back in 2019, we signed a power purchase agreement with a company called Terrigen for a project called Edwards 5 that was supposed to be online by the end of this year. They did inform us in the spring that they would not be able to build this project due to CEQA construction issues. And so we have been working with them on replacement agreements, which we're pretty excited about because they expand the amount of renewable energy that we will be able to purchase from Terrigen. And we modeled this after a very successful project that we have with them, Edwards 4, which delivers renewable energy during a fixed time period. So it delivers between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. the same amount of energy during that whole time period, which is very attractive to us because it helps us meet our afternoon and our evening hours. So this replacement contract significantly expands upon the original contract and provides additional value to us in meeting our load during those evening hours. It also provides resource adequacy from those batteries, so it achieves additional value there as well. So just a little bit about Terrigen. They're a leading developer owner of utility scale renewable energy projects. Important to note that we do have another successful project with them, Edwards 4, that has been operating all year successfully. They've been operating these projects since 2008 and have over 1,700 megawatts in operation. They're not a publicly traded company, and important to note that they are one of the only firms that provides this firm renewable power that we're looking for, and that it can generate from morning into the evening hours versus a typical solar project that delivers, when the solar shines, and that's usually from 10 a.m. to about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and doesn't provide any of that evening generation that we need to meet our load. So in summary, this replacement package, 4 different contracts, it provides both resource adequacy as well as firm renewable energy. This project is located in Kern County next to the other operating project. And the contract operation dates vary between 2023 and 2026, with a term of 15 years and a total cost of $352 million. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. All right, questions from, let's go to the public first.
Paul Soto?
Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. Again, battery storage. Battery storage wars in South America, namely Chile, Argentina, and there is a lot of reservation sites in the Midwest and here in California that are sitting on native disputable land that has the deposits of the minerals that are necessary for the battery storage. And I think there's some council members on the council that are aware of this, especially considering that they work in tech. You know, considering the next candidate for mayor, I'm actually surprised that there's no comment on that, because you know about these technologies and you know about the storage. And so we have to assume the moral and ethical responsibility. I know you guys don't care about that. All you care about is the law. As long as it doesn't break the law, then I'm morally and ethically in the clear. Nope, you're not. And that's the job that I hold. That's the responsibility that I hold, is to hold ourselves accountable for the wars that are going to be started in these other countries, so that you can have clean energy, so that you can drive a Tesla, so that Google can have a grid all their own, so that nobody is regulating or checking their consumption of power because of the AI technologies and the supercomputers that they're going to be using in their basements. I mean, that's really why they want their own grid, is so that nobody can tell how much power and juice that they're using. And so the storage capacity wars in countries, and the United States military being used in order to foment those wars, okay? And then we're going to be told a bunch of stories on CNN and Fox News, a bunch of lies. And no, you're not hearing lies. You're hearing the truth right here. This is what the truth sounds like. So get used to it, because you're going to hear it more often. Thank you.
Claire?
Hi, thank you. Thanks again for the words of Paul. Just my own few words. The worker rights issues and human rights issues we set up around the world now with the future of mining rare earth minerals, I think not only develops good human rights practices now, but has a way to work as a hedge against the future of what will be upcoming wars. And we'll have a good set of ideals in place that I think can cut off basically the future of war. That's the goal. And good luck how we work on our good human rights ideals with the future of clean energy practices. I wanted to quickly ask, I'm a little behind in how to better understand these sort of practices. So for as much as I believe in the future of renewables energy that can really be of help to ourselves, I know there is a reliance on natural gas with renewables at this time, but I don't quite know the depth of it. And I don't quite know that. I know that we are headed for what could be some good changes in 2024 about how to talk about the future of natural gas. But what I'm not clear about is that can renewable energy then stand on its own 2 feet and will not need to have to rely on natural gas as much? To me, that's an important goal. I hope you can learn to
explain that more openly and clearly to the public in the next few months and years, and just make it a real important subject matter to understand the issue. And I thank yourselves very much in the Bay Area, in the previous work you've done to really limit how fossil fuel companies and natural gas companies, how they can make a profit at this time. Try to limit that in Northern California. Thank you for those efforts, and good luck to 2024. Thanks.
Back to council.
Okay, back to the council. Lots of sound effects on that one. Councilmember Prowse.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And is it Jean or Jeannie?
Sorry, Jean.
Jean. Thank you. Well, neither one of the ones that I said. I want to say thank you, Jean, for the briefing that you provided me. And it was helpful to dive in a little further and have a better understanding. And as you know, I took some concern with the Terra Glen Edwards Solar 5, the replacement package. And I'm going to express some of those concerns here. I don't know if I'll vote against it, but I definitely want to voice concerns. I'm comfortable with recommendation B1, which is that first 15-year term that will start next year. But the remainder of it, B2, 3, and 4, what I'm mainly concerned about, and maybe you can talk about it here, or Lori, if you wanted to add to it, is quite simply the fact that we had an agreement with them for whatever reason. I understand they have their reasonings, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to make good on that. And we've been now trying to find out what a step forward is, and this is what you've come up with. So I appreciate the hard work that you've done. But we are now contingent again on them making good on another build out, right, of new solar energy. And so they've failed us once, and I'm concerned, right, that we're entering a contract again, and right, shame me, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, now shame on me, right? So we are entering into this willingly knowing that, right, they didn't make good on this first contract. And where I had a concern was that I recognize this may be a good deal today, but it doesn't look like such a great deal, 3 years from now when they haven't made good on it again. And now we're back to square one, but 3 years past the fact. And at that point, I imagine, right, we don't know what the cost will be for a program like this. And so in my mind, I felt it might be more worthwhile to simply say, well, let's go with this first package. We know that's something we have some more confidence in, and then really look elsewhere. I understand that we are doing that already. We're always kind of looking, right, for other programs and packages. And so it looks like we don't have to go out there and do any extra work. It's just a matter now of do we accept this replacement contract or not, and then continue to do the hard work to go out there and try to find other sources of solar energy. So that's my concern. Hoping you can, convince me again. I trust your knowledge more than mine on this subject, but it does raise on a basic level, layman's concerns. This is a concern.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Very good concerns that you raised, and we certainly have shared some of that. In terms of answering your question of why we are recommending moving forward with these agreements. So although this project faced some issues and they didn't get it into construction, they did successfully complete the other contract that we have with them. That contract has performed very well all year. And they have many megawatts under operation throughout their portfolio over the last, decade and more that they've been in operation. So we do know that they have a track record of success. When any project is constructed, some things can happen during construction and issues can arise. The other reason we're recommending going forward with this is that, as I stated, in many ways, these projects are much more valuable than the original contract, in that they provide firm energy. The original contract was as available solar, and so that's going to generate who knows how much between the hours of 10 and 3, but nothing in those evening hours when energy prices are the highest and our load is the highest. And so, successfully, through Jean's great work and the team's work here, negotiated a very attractive replacement package that, increases the value, preserves everything that we had in that original agreement, and is a much more attractive agreement than the original one because of that firm delivery. We know we can count on it. And I'll just give you an example. Back in September, when we had that heat wave, the other project that they operate for us, Edwards 4, performed very, very well. It was very nice to know that that renewable energy was going to show up at a fixed amount during those evening hours and be part of our portfolio. And we want more, projects like that in our portfolio. And right now, Terragen is one of the only developers that's offering that. And so that's why we are recommending it. And I'll say the other thing that gives us comfort is that in the agreement, just like the original one, there are performance damages. So if they do not construct these, they have to pay us those damages. And so that's certainly an option that we could take today. We could just take that performance security and move on to another developer. But we don't think we would get the same type of value in the market that we're getting with these contracts. So I hope that answers some of your concerns.
Yeah, it does. And again, I think just a word of caution, if anything, right? And it brought me pause in the conversation, the briefing that I had. And so I do appreciate it. I trust your judgment on this. I do think it's worth noting, right, the concern there. It's positive to hear that we have a history of success with them as well, and they have a demonstrated history of success. And look forward to this being successful as well, and hopefully paying out for us in the long run. Thanks. And I'll move approval.
All right, motion and second. There are other comments or questions? My colleagues, I don't see any online. Okay, let's vote.
Peralez,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco, Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Everybody. All right, we've got another very positive item coming up, 7.1 grant agreement with California State Library for the Building Forward Library Infrastructure Grants. Welcome, Jill and team. We got money coming.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Jill Bourne, City Librarian for the San Jose Public Library, and I'm here with our Facilities Program Manager, Ann Tran. We're going to give you a little bit of background about the grant agreement with the California State Library for the Building Forward Library Infrastructure Grants. So the Budget Act of 2021 allocated one-time funds to the California State Library Building Forward Library Infrastructure Program to address life safety and critical maintenance needs of public library facilities. The grant application was then made available to allocate $254 million in the first round to direct matching grants to libraries throughout California. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Where's the thingy? I'm like directing myself. So this provides you with the structure of the grants. There were $439 million provided to the state library, and the first round, as you see here, is for $254 million. There will be an additional round, we understand, for the remaining $185 million. And I'm going to turn it over to Ann to talk through the specifics.
Thanks, Jill. So in considering our application for the 25 libraries, we actually have to do a prioritization exercise. The state requires that we look at the California Poverty Measure Index, which we validated with our equity tool. And then we looked at the building condition assessments as well as the lifespan of our individual buildings, the equipment, and then factored in any emergency or accessibility improvements that could be made, especially to the libraries in our underserved neighborhoods. And then considered the operational impacts for any major repairs, obviously, because we want to maintain accessibility throughout our renovation projects. Next slide, please.
There you go.
So this is a snapshot of the breakdown in grant allocation in California, especially for the northern part of California. You'll see that San Jose received the majority of the branches, or at least the most of the libraries, compared to other Bay Area cities. So the breakdown for the total grant funding that we received from the state equals about $8.6 million. You'll see that Biblioteca Latinoamericana Branch Library and Seven Trees received the majority of the funds. Our match commitment is a dollar-for-dollar match to the state's awards, which makes us, or which would commit us to about another $8.6 million in local match.
Okay. And in terms of implementation, if we receive council approval today, the next step will be to continue coordination with Public Works to scope out the projects, with the budget office to ensure that our CIP is revised accordingly, and with PRNS to ensure that we are coordinating around improvements to joint facilities. Then we would revise the project calendar in accordance with the CIP and include regular status updates. And then finally, the grant funds will need to be expended by 2026, and when we will issue a grant spending report and project closeout. So we are very appreciative of the partnerships with Public Works and PRNS and the capital budget team to make this happen. And we are excited by the opportunity to basically double the city's funding power to ensure that our public libraries remain open, accessible, and welcoming for our communities. This concludes our presentation, and we're welcome any questions.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the public.
Paul Soto?
Yes, yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. Specifically with respect to the Biblioteca Latinoamerica, and because I'm looking at it right now, and Seven Trees, they're taking up the lion's share. Not that I'm complaining, but what I'd like to know is why is it that Hillview and East San Jose Carnegie branch, okay, no, I know why that is because of the size. But the Hillview branch and Alviso, the metric that's used is like kind of lost on me. I'm just looking for what is the reason why these particular libraries are receiving the lion's share. Okay, number one, I get equity, I get all that. Okay, that's not what the question that I'm asking though. I'm asking is what metric was used. And the other thing is, what does it mean for infrastructure? I mean, how are you defining that? How are you defining where exactly this money is going to go? I mean, are you going to retrofit a particular pole or put cement in some wall? You know, or is the money really going to go towards the educational piece and maybe expanding the access that these particular people have in these particular areas? It's not enough to just say equity. We're using equity. I need to know what you mean by that, because I don't know what you mean when you use that word. And I need to know because this is my money. This is the public's money. And so I need to know exactly what metrics are being used. How are you defining equity? What does equity mean within this context? And why are these two libraries receiving the lion's share? And it looks like at the expense of the others. I'm just looking for the reasons why. Thank you.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. With your council items this week, I just wanted to quickly remind, good luck with the digital equity issues that may be involved with this, and that openness and accountability with tech can really be an important factor to help kids understand the digital equity process in our future community life in San Jose. Thanks a lot.
Back to the council.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank you for continuing to improve our libraries and go out and find resources for it. I understand all of the needs at the various branches vary from branch to branch. There were 2 branches that were not upgraded or modernized during the, well, 3, I guess, but there was the West Valley branch, is that what it's called? West Valley branch, which was relatively new right before the bond passed, so it didn't get work. But those 2 branches, older branches that didn't get work during the, from the bond. And I know there was a conscious decision not to upgrade Alviso as part of that, partly because there was question about whether or not Alviso would eventually get replaced with something new and better. It never did, and it's a very small branch as it is. It's also clearly different looking than the other branches in our system. They all have sort of a look and feel that's very standard, but Alviso doesn't have that look and feel. So the memo that I've submitted asks for additional funding to be found out of the CNC or other library capital funds in mid-year review to do some cosmetic customer-facing work in addition to this important infrastructure work for this grant to help that community. Alviso remains the only library for residents of San Jose west of 880 and north of Brokaw. There is no library for the 8,000 homes in North San Jose. There is no library. The only library in North San Jose is the Alviso branch. It's very important for that community for multiple reasons. And by the way, as an anecdote, the demand is shown by the fact that it was a branch that actually has more people coming in on Sunday now that it's open on Sundays than it does during its average weekday. So there was a lot of pent-up demand in Alviso for usage. So I'm going to make a motion to accept the grant agreement along with my memo.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. And just to clarify, that would come back through the budget process?
It was intended to come back through the mid-year budget review. It's not, and it's coming from library reserves. Is that an acceptable process?
That should be okay.
Well, or I guess I'll ask you.
Yeah, it should be, I think it'd be fine as long as it's not coming from the general fund.
Right.
We can take a look at that. And if we have any issues, then we'll advise during the mid-year budget review.
Exactly. That's the intention. I mean, not to hit the general fund at all for this.
Yeah. Okay.
If I could add, I think that what we need to do is work with Public Works to scope out and have a timeline for doing the assessment of what those additional improvements would be. I think to your point, the library has been working for a few years, and Councilmember Perales is well aware of the efforts to really put heavy improvements into the Biblioteca Latinoamericana branch. And that's why when we were able to apply for the grant, we had a very fleshed out plan that then, resulted in a higher dollar value. With Alviso, because that question has always remained of whether the building should be replaced or, what are the options with it, we haven't done that level of work. And so if it's okay, what we would do is start working on what that looks like, and then we would get a cost estimate that would then feed into whatever is the closest budget process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, whatever makes sense. And I did mean to mention that obviously Biblioteca being the other branch that didn't get the work, it's important that that one is getting a large amount of remaining bond money to do the work now. And so I do appreciate doing this right is important too, but there potentially are short-term and long-term improvements that can be made.
Great, thank you. Just one clarification. I assume in your memorandum, when you refer to measure T, I think you mean measure O. Is that right, Councilor Cohen?
Oh, I probably made, yeah, it was probably the library bond, which probably was measure O, that's right.
A couple of decades ago, yeah. It's hard to get them all straight. I just had a quick question about the selection of libraries. It sounds like we applied for 23 million, we got 9 million, which means some libraries got left out by the state. That wasn't our choice, I assume.
Actually, I believe we got awarded for all 9 branches that we requested. It was just
I
a
see.
lesser dollar value than originally requested. And again, this is the first round. There will be an additional round
Great.
of grants.
Well, it's great to see us do so well. I had a question about one, which was Educational Park Library. I know it serves a community, absolutely would qualify under the grant, but it's a really new library. I could be wrong, but I think it's either our newest or second newest. Was there, my understanding is this is supposed to be about sort of capital replacement of those parts of the library that are under-maintained. Could you just tell us a little bit about this particular?
Yeah, in general, I think, and then Anne can add any specifics that I don't know, but I think in general, and it's important to note that the primary factor of the application requirements was that we have building assessment reports that tell you what the critical infrastructure and system needs are for every branch. And so we have worked with Public Works to develop that out, basically an asset management plan and replacement cycle.
Right.
And so most of these fall into that, those categories of what is the regular life cycle for these types of systems.
Right.
I'm not aware of anything specific with the Ed Park.
We can take it
roof.
offline then.
Did anything happen with that?
No, it was just the roof had an estimated end of life for estimated for 2024. So we factored that in. And then as we looked at emergency or accessibility repairs, we also factored those components into Educational Park.
So ADA requirements, things like that. Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? Let's vote then on Councilmember Cohen.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, forgive me, I didn't see that. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I just had a question on the timeline. This isn't going to impact the timeline for the other funded grant projects. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Which grant project?
I think she's
So
asking
the
whether my
project-
memo affects it.
Oh,
I don't think it does. I just want
No,
to
yes.
clarify. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Councilmember.
Okay.
Yeah. No, our intent would be these is to come back, work with Public Works, come back with a timeline for all the funded projects, and then at the same time we would start work on developing out the Alvisa project.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's vote on the motion.
Jimenez, Morales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco, Davis,
Yes.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 8.1 is the public hearing and approval of a downtown high-rise residential tax and fee waiver for Scape at 10 East Reed Street.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Nancy Klein, Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs, here with Jared Ferguson and Rosalind Huey. Jared's also with Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. Staff is here today before you because Scape is investing in downtown with a significant residential high-rise project. Scape's project is a 23-story, 336-unit high-rise located on 10 East Reed Street. The project is seeking to participate in the city's tax and fee waiver program, and to do so must have a public hearing and fulfill other state and local requirements. And Jared will now present and share the rest of the details for the project.
Thanks, Nancy. Good afternoon. Jared Ferguson, Housing Catalyst with the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. So the current high-rise program was approved by the City Council on November 5th, 2019. The program provides for a 50% reduction of the building and structure construction tax and the commercial residential mobile home park building tax. It also includes a reduction to $0, the inclusionary housing ordinance in lieu fee. projects must obtain their certificate of occupancy before June 30th, 2025 in order to qualify for the tax and fee reductions. So as Nancy mentioned, Scape is a 23-story high-rise located at 10th East Reed Street. Includes 336 market rate rental units and 5,323 square feet of ground floor retail space. On this slide is the summary of the tax and fee waiver associated with Scape. This includes a 50% reduction in the 2 construction taxes and the reduction of the IHO in lieu fee for a total value of $9,856,585. The next 2 slides include direct revenue estimates to the city, school district, and county. This first slide is the one-time revenue that will be received from the project. The city will receive construction taxes and parkland in lieu fees. The school district will also receive one-time development fees. The total one-time revenue estimate is $6,219,247. This slide shows the annual recurring revenue to the city, school district, and county. The total city recurring revenue is $365,000, a little over $365,000. And then the total recurring revenue to the county and school district and the city is just below $1.4 million. And so Scape has started their initial work and is anticipating receiving their building permit in November. This would be the first high-rise to start construction since Miro across the street from City Hall. That concludes staff's presentation. Representatives from Scape are also available via Zoom for any questions. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Let's go to the public.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Just to offer my 2 cents. I always worry when you talk about high-rises in San Jose downtown area, and this is another example. I mean, I know you guys, you'd like to work precipitously close to the flight paths. Can I offer that a 10-story, 12-story building in that area would not only be possibly safer for the aircrafts in the area, but just aesthetically, I think would be more interesting and offer a kind of a more of a slower introduction to what you're introducing. You're basically introducing a high-rise feature, but maybe not just the Reed area, but the area on the other side of the freeway. And so I think those buildings are not going to be 20 stories high. I think they would be more like 10 or 12 maybe. So to build in those terms, I think maybe a bit more practical, but that's just my 2 cents. Really consider safety issues as always, and good luck on making it a relaxed process. And I just moved to San Diego where they have really tall high rises. I don't think we have to necessarily do that in San Jose, and you can build, 8-story, 10-story buildings that can be pretty interesting looking, I think, and unique to what San Jose's character is about. Thank you.
1324, or Paul, sorry.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. If you approve this, when you add this to the other high-rise tax subsidy that you had given that other building that went up on Notre Dame, it would equal $13 million of taxpayer money that you gave to billionaires to make them richer. Okay, and $13 million would buy a lot of land here in San Jose. Okay, so what you're actually doing is you're creating deficiency and voids within the general budget that is not being able to be accessed by people who really actually need that kind of money. Let me give you some examples. You want to pay $130,000 for these units, okay? But these are market rate units, which means that for a person to live there, they have to make above 120% of the median income. 120% above the median income is $170,000. $170,000. That's how much they have to earn. Okay, so these are people that can afford it. Okay, and you want to allow them, and these units would normally go for anywhere between 850,000 to 1.5 million. That's how much these units would normally go for. But you're allowing the developer to buy it back for $130,000, and then you keep a straight face, and you want to talk about equity. You want to talk about we got a housing crisis, and then you want to get up and say that this council is the one that is responsible for the housing crisis to begin with. That the people along the creeks, they're not responsible for being there. That is the failures of this council for being there. But yet you want to give away this kind of bread to these? No, that's not acceptable. That's not okay. And I'm really concerned and want to hear from this council and what they have to say about this.
Victor?
Honorable Mayor Liccardo and City Council members, this is Victor Gomez, Government Affairs Consultant with the San Jose Downtown Association. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Downtown Association in favor of the staff recommendation as outlined in your presentation. As outlined in the staff report from the Housing Department, the number of residents living downtown continues to be critical for the future of downtown San Jose. Waiving taxes, fees on downtown residential development, including the proposed SCAPE project, is important for the health and the success of the downtown community that needs the foot traffic and the economic activity for more residents to bring. Construction costs for high-rise residential development continues to climb. In 2019, the City Council accepted a downtown high-rise feasibility assessment that showed a typical high-rise residential development in downtown San Jose is not financially feasible. Today, these cost burdens are even higher. Approving the residential tax and fee waiver will help these projects like SCAPE get underway. And once constructed, will house more San Jose residents and other typical projects in the downtown core. With that said, we fully support, on behalf of the Downtown Association, again, we fully support these actions and look forward to your support. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, excuse me, this is Mike Sodergren, Vice President of the Preservation Action Council. Due exclusively pretty much to our trust in Nancy Klein, PAC does not oppose this project, but we would like to say the following. This is a tremendous amount of taxes and fees to forego unless the city truly believes that the alternative is no development at all at this site. It is discouraging to think that we feel it necessary to incentivize developers of even market rate housing to build housing in San Jose that pencils out, particularly as we struggle to make things work for the benefit of the people in San Jose and so many other areas. PAC, like many organizations that represent the interests of the people, encourage the development of new housing, particularly housing that is deemed affordable. Very often the most affordable housing is the housing we already have, and often that housing is deemed historic and unfortunately in the way of new development. It is in this context that PAC would like to remind the council that the SCAPE project is where the historic palace and apartment building was originally located before it was moved in a rush and at a cost of $300,000 that was raised by a nonprofit, PAC, to a city-provided receiver site at 4th and Reed. Though through the joint work of PAC, the city's Office of Economic Development, Housing, and District 3 Council, ownership of the palace was transferred to Habitat for Humanity, which is actively working to provide what now looks like the only truly affordable housing that will result from the SCAPE project. The good news is the alternative when this project started was the demolition and loss of the historic building. So thank you, San Jose, for all you did to preserve it. And I'd also like to thank Councilmember Perales for working out an agreement with SCAPE to make sure that the $30,000 promised for the equivalent cost.
Blair?
I've spoken already.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thanks, Blair. Hey, thank you, Nancy and Jared, for the presentation, and thanks to Councilmember Prowse for all he's done to try to promote housing in downtown. And we know it's really hard right now for anybody to get financing to build anything. I'm guessing this is going to be the last one of these we see for a long time. I appreciate, Jared, that you did the analysis that I asked around last time around the tax revenue. I think that's really helpful for people to really understand what's going on. But could we go to that last slide where you talk about the recurring revenue, both the city and to all the jurisdictions? Because I know it's hard, I think, for the public to follow the bouncing ball if we're talking about apples and oranges. We've got one-time revenue and costs, right? Or foregone revenue, I should say. So we've got foregone revenue of almost $10 million here. We've got one-time revenue of about $6 million if this gets built as proposed. And then I think we go to just about the last slide, or the next to last slide, something like that. Nope, that's on the wrong item. So I'll describe the problem generally, which is we've got foregone revenue, which is one time. We've got one-time revenue, and those are apples. And then we got this oranges, which is the recurring revenue. And so it becomes difficult, I think, for the viewers at home, for taxpayers to be able to say, is the city getting fiscal value or not? Because we're looking at two different financial phenomenon. One is one time and one's recurring. And obviously there's a way of converting recurring to one time. And the way we do that, like any annuity or like any college finance professor would tell us, is you calculate the net present value. And I guess, are we able to get that slide up? Maybe I'll just tell you what I think was on the slide. I think what was on the slide was $365,000 of recurring annual revenue to the city, and something close to 1.4 million that was annually recurring to school districts. There we go. That's it. Thank you. So the challenges come, what does this all mean if we've got one-time revenue 6 million, foregone revenue 10 million, and then we got this recurring revenue, which is a different beast. And I'm just wondering, I just did a back of envelope because I got a spreadsheet here of the net present value. And the net present value just to the city of 365,000. It depends on what discount rate you pick. I picked 4%. So I don't know what city would pick, somewhere around a risk-free rate. And that comes to a little more than $7 million. I just assumed the building was going to last 40 years. It's going to last a lot longer than that, obviously. But we can conservatively say it would be about 7.2 million to the city. And then to all these other agencies, the county, school district, and so forth, that's 27.5 million. So the reason why I'm saying that is I think I'm really grateful that you guys did the tax calculation. I'm hoping we can just convert it all so it's apples to apples. So someone can look at this and say, is the taxpayer getting value or not? And I think when we look at the net present value, as I think a finance professor would say we should do that, I think we could say very clearly there is positive fiscal value. There's lots of other value, obviously, that high-rise housing brings to our city. Obviously, housing, most importantly, but also a lot of vibrancy to our downtown. But I think it's just helpful if we position, we actually clearly show everybody what exactly the dollars are. And I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, and we can look at that in the future ones. I think I totally understand what you're saying, suggesting. Yeah.
Agreed. And if you think about it, when we get our money back, the other calculation is just somewhere around 10 years.
Yeah.
Lower than that we've returned all the money plus some.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's important that, that what staff has created is a mechanism that puts us ahead, and that's what we want. Councilmember Frost?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I appreciate your comment you added on in regards to that we're not approving development of high-rise housing to collect fees, right? I mean, that's not why we're doing it, and thus we can utilize it as an incentive to get something else that we are trying to achieve, which is dense high-rise housing in the downtown core, the place where we today can build as high as possible that's permitted, and unfortunately, it's very difficult. And it took me a couple years to understand the challenge to be able to finance and permit and break ground on a high rise in downtown. And we eliminated some other factors west of 87 with our one engine inoperable, our height limits because of our airport, but we are still capped, and we have a challenge in being able to just build and break ground in a high rise in downtown. And so although subsidies are not our first, I think, look at how we might be able to help a project through, in essence, I don't think we would have gotten any of these high rises approved through my last 2 terms unless it was for what in actuality is not a significant amount in the overall financing of a project. But it is, it's a big number as we look at it, 6 million, but I would say fairly insignificant over the long run in regards to not only the tax revenue that we will generate, and thank you, Mayor, for pointing that out, because it could be a bit confusing looking at the slides, but also just in being able to build the type of housing that we know that we desperately need in the city, all across the board, from this type of housing to the affordable housing that we've been approving in downtown. So I appreciate the work on it, and I know SCAPE has worked hard to get to this point, and I look forward to them being able to make good on these timelines, and us be able to break ground and see a project come up out of the ground there. So with that, I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion second. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. So we are foregoing almost $9 million in inclusionary housing in lieu fees. And in exchange, we have one-time city revenue and then a total city recurring revenue of $365,000. What is our plan? Are we counting on Google to add density for affordable housing? Where we're giving up fees and we're looking at recurring fees on all these other taxes, but we're waiving almost $9 million in an inclusionary housing fee. How does that fit into our strategy for affordable housing?
Councilmember Nancy Klein, Office of Economic Development. Thank you very much for the question. The Housing Department and the rest of the city are moving forward, as you and council have directed, on a multi-pronged strategy. Getting more housing in the downtown or throughout the city, the market rate, is important. And we've worked closely with the Housing Department, and Kemet is here if he wants to add. There are portions and plans and programs that impact and support affordable in Measure E and other funding sources. And we'll be coming back shortly with our cost of development to share more about the cost of housing and anticipated actions to facilitate housing, both market rate and affordable.
But we've read studies that adding more market rate housing does not impact housing at the affordable level, that we need to continue to focus on the affordable level. So I'm trying to figure out where we're going to make up almost $9 million in the fee that we're waiving today.
Thank you again, Councilmember. A couple different things. One, it is foregoing the revenue, not in any way trying to sidestep that. We don't believe the market rate housing would get built, so it would be $0 and 0 units to the city. And by the math that we showed, that in the combination of one-time dollars to the city and other jurisdictions, as well as the ongoing dollars, we both recoup what we gave up and we gain in the long term for revenues and units.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. I've always been uncomfortable on this topic. I think for similar reasons to Councilmember Esparza. I know that this analysis was done before I was on council, so I'm not suggesting that we revisit the whole conversation now. Just want to ask a couple questions. I see on the first slide the statement basically that says an analysis demonstrated a typical high-rise was not financially feasible, and I guess we still believe that certain types of projects are not feasible. And I guess I'm just going to ask the question combined with sort of other parts of the city. We're building maybe not quite the same magnitude of high-rise, but we're building some high-rise projects in other parts of the city that have inclusionary housing. What do we look at to determine what's feasible in some areas but isn't feasible downtown, and what are the differences?
So the current program was approved with the analysis from 2019 that showed infeasibility. Next week at the City Council, we have a study session on the cost development where we updated that same analysis. So we looked at high-rise feasibility as well as mid-rise and low-rise in the city. And the results are consistent with the 29, actually a little bit worse in terms of feasibility for housing, market rate housing projects in the city. Even mid-rise are not feasible under the current conditions. So, and the current analysis looks at high-rise again, and the situation, if there was no waiver, no waiver of the inclusionary housing ordinance fees, the projects would not be feasible. Even with the reduction, they're very challenged to move forward. So the situation is very similar, and in fact, a little bit worse because of the pandemic and other factors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking this question because we've talked a lot about North San Jose and projects in North San Jose where we have put our foot down a little bit as a council recently and said we're going to hold developers to 20% inclusionary housing, and clearly, we might hear some of the same arguments about, well, it's not feasible if we do that. Now, I know there's some differences because usually when we do that, we have multiple buildings, and is that really the distinction here, that inclusionary housing, when you do it all under one roof, is where it becomes financially unfeasible?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, I mean, what we've seen and what you're talking about with the entitlements in North San Jose is that there's definitely help when you can separate the buildings in terms of helping with the financing. And those are the projects that have been approved recently that are complying with the inclusionary housing ordinance, are doing so with the clustered option. And when you have a high rise, you don't really have that opportunity to be able to have a separate building to deliver the units. So
that's because you can finance that separate building in different ways that you can't finance when it's all under one roof.
That's right.
And could we also talk about the distinction between high-rise and mid-rise? Because I think Councilmember Cohen is believing that it's being built
No,
as
I understand.
high-rise.
Yeah, I understand.
No, I mean, there's a very big difference
Yeah,
between 7 stories and 12. And maybe, Nancy, do you want to describe it?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes,
Yeah.
there are additional costs in materials as well as fire, life safety, and structural that all are challenged that make the costs a great deal more.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
as the mayor mentioned.
Right. I'm just asking some. Yeah, I understand, and I know that there's construction materials and differences above certain heights and a lot of things that add to the cost. I'm just want to make sure that yeah. But thank you for that.
Understood.
Get the other question. The other comment I was just going to make is, it seems to me that we look at this as an either or. I just want to do the financial analysis. There's really 3 options, 3 outcome options, or 3 possible outcomes. One is it doesn't get built. Clearly, there's no revenue if it doesn't get built. One is it gets built with the fees still intact, and we end up with the $6 million and all the ongoing fees plus an additional $9 million. And the third is the outcome that we're getting here, which is we've waived the fees. We're getting the $6 million plus the ongoing fees. It's not just it's. So really, the question is what feasibility, and not we're sacrificing something to gain something that we otherwise wouldn't get, except for the fact that the project may or may not get built. I guess I'm not explaining my thought process very well, but we need to be thinking about this in terms of the subsidy and sacrifice and what the potential revenue is for a project where we didn't make that sacrifice in addition as another option. We seem to leave that out in this discussion. I just want to make that clear, although I understand I'd be loath at this point to change the process because these developers have been financing and planning their project under a set of policies that allows them to make these, to expect these kinds of subsidies. So I'm okay with allowing them to proceed under the policies that are in place. I just want to be thoughtful as we move forward about, what's the right magnitude of the sacrifices that are needed by the city and for our inclusionary housing programs. Is it an all or nothing 0 versus the fees, or is there some in between? just using this opportunity to bring up those questions that are still in my head every time we have a waiver like this. I guess that's all I'll say on that. But I'm supportive of allowing this developer to take advantage of the program that's already in place.
Thank you. And Councilman Cohen, I apologize for jumping in. The reason why I did was I think you had articulated that we're building high rises in other parts of the city. And I just want to emphasize the type 1 construction is really not happening anywhere outside of the downtown. And by type 1, I mean steel construction with a very specific life safety requirements that make this very high cost per unit. That's different than the 6-7 stories that we may be building in other parts of the city.
Right, point taken. I was actually kind of thinking about Paseo, San Antonio. I think that building, but you're right.
Yeah,
it's probably not quite that. So I was just thinking of an example. That was the only example maybe I can come up with, but it is an example where we did get inclusionary housing in the project.
Yeah.
But that's also because it's a multi-building and a different kind of setup than the downtown would be.
Yeah, and I think I could be wrong. I shouldn't speak because I don't know what construction type they're using on that, but I think they've got high podium. But in any event, fair point. Councilmember Mahan?
Thanks, Mayor. So yeah, just a few clarifying questions. So I think we just answered my first, which is currently there's nowhere in the city that we're building high rise with inclusionary. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And when's the last time we broke ground? We saw a high rise residential break ground in San Jose? How many years ago?
In 2017 for Mira.
So 5 years ago. And what do we think is the likelihood this project would move forward without the fee reduction?
I think they would be very challenged to move forward without this program. And I mean, they're on the call too. You could ask them as well. I'm sure they would be happy to answer this.
Sure. Why don't we ask the applicant? Escape is on. I'd be curious. Without the fee waiver, what's the likelihood this project would be moving forward today?
David, you're available to unmute yourself.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the time today. Not receiving these subsidies would certainly change our entire financial plan and financing package. And, as part of, similar to what Jared and Nancy have been saying, this has been in the works for 3 years now. And, we assume that these subsidies as part of the city of San Jose would be received. So I would say unlikely.
Okay. And if the project didn't move forward, we would therefore have $0 for inclusionary. Okay. And then finally, is it fair to say that even when we build market rate like this, that we are in fact providing housing for residents who are therefore otherwise not out there in the rest of the marketplace bidding up the price of other existing housing stock?
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Yes, the more housing that we have, there's less pressure on the existing housing stock.
Great. And I think we just saw that play out in Seattle pretty clearly. Is that fair to say? Yes, I see heads nodding. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Pross?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the discussion, and Mayor, you'll know, we went back and forth a couple times on this subsidy, and as I started off my conversation, it took some time to truly understand the nuanced difference of the different types of developments, the different locations of development, and quite frankly, right, that's why we came to this agreement. We put in there some parameters, timelines, because we knew that the environment is going to change, and quite frankly, would give the new council or even this council an opportunity, right, to revet out should a fee waiver reduction program like this exist, and for what types of development. And the council will have that opportunity to do that, quite frankly, next year. And so even maybe ahead of time, we may have a chance to discuss that, as some of these projects are, as you point out, Mayor, this would likely be the last one. June 30th of next year is the certificate of occupancy date. And so, and as Councilmember Mahan pointed out, if it broke ground, the last one was 5 years ago. And so even with this subsidy program, it has been extremely difficult in the environment of downtown to build high rise. I will be the first to say and answer more bluntly, Councilmember Esparza's question. This doesn't really do anything directly at least, for our affordable housing needs. Indirectly, as Councilor Mahan described, and yes, right, there's some indirect correlation I think you could find out of that, but directly it really doesn't. It is building market rate housing. Taking inclusionary housing dollars doesn't help to add money to our ability to build affordable housing, but neither does 100% of zero, and neither does right the opportunity of getting more housing overall. And I quite frankly think we would have had none of the high rises under my term break ground if it wasn't for this piece of the pie. And so I do think it's important. I do think the discussion of what should it be is important, and we'll have an opportunity as a council to through the years continually vet that out. But for now, absolutely, this is a program that the council has approved, one that's been standing for a number of years, and that, as we've heard from Scape, they put into their financing. And so that's it's incumbent upon them to get this approved. If not, I would say not just unlikely, I would say we wouldn't see this project move forward. So just wanted to add some color to it.
Yeah, appreciate the points made by Councilmember Perales. And like I said, I don't know if you'd know this off the top of your head, Jared, but do you have any idea how many high rises are entitled in downtown? I'm guessing it's around a couple dozen.
Yeah, I don't know. I have the list, but I don't know off the top
It's a
of my head. I
long
have to look
list.
it up. Yeah, there's several thousand in terms of units that are entitled right now in high
Yeah.
rise, and none of them have started since Miro. So there's a lot of sitting capacity that's been approved.
So we've seen a lot of great Mercury News articles with beautiful pictures of high rises that have been planned, as Councilmember Perales mentioned during his term, and I think we've gotten maybe 3 or 4 actually under construction. This is a very difficult thing to do, and this is why cities throughout the country tend to offer a lot more in terms of subsidy than we do. We're just cutting fees. They're actually giving developers money in other cities. And in this case, I do want to clarify. If you look at, again, apples to apples, net present value costs to the city, whatever you believe about the foregone $10 million, most of that in affordable housing funding, I think Nancy put it well. It's money we're not likely to get anyway because this thing ain't going to get built. What we get for the city net present value is more than 13 million, and what all the other public agencies get on top of that is about 27 million in net present value. And in addition to, most importantly, we get housing. And Councilmember Perales put it well, although I probably would differ on an issue of semantics, which is how we define affordability. I think affordability matters to a lot of people, even if they don't qualify for quote unquote affordable housing, and a lot of workers who are struggling to pay market rate rents and struggle greatly to do that. It matters for us to get housing supply out there for market rate as well. The higher that market rate gets, the harder it gets for us even get the affordable product to move forward. Everything matters. So I think we want more supply, period, because affordability matters to lots of families all throughout the income structures, scale. And of course, we want to focus every dollar of actual city money on those families that are struggling the most and the lowest incomes. But getting housing built is a good thing. Jared?
I got the number for you. It's a little over 7,800 in review or approved for high rise.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's units. Yeah, not actual buildings. Yeah.
Correct. Units. Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's vote.
Perales,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco, Davis,
Yes.
Esparza, Arenas,
Councilmember Rice.
Arenas. Thank you. Foley,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. I understand the agenda says we're supposed to break till 6 o'clock. Is that right, Tony?
Yes.
So we're supposed to break till 6 o'clock. Sorry, everybody.
And we'll have,
So
we have afternoon open forum since we have a break.
yes, let's have afternoon forum. Thank you, Tony.
Okay, catalyze SV. Catalyze SV. Okay, I'm going to move on to Blair Beekman.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, sorry. Hi, this is Alex Shore with Catalyze SV. I think I missed an opportunity for public comment earlier on the development issue. So if I can't submit this comment now, that's okay. I guess part of the question in this discussion that you all have with the developers, I would wonder if we could pose the question to them perhaps in the future on, or at least maybe the council or the Office of Economic Development could understand what those profit margins would be. I think, Ronald Reagan isn't my absolute favorite president in the world, but he did say trust but verify. And it seems like the council did a great job of trusting the developer that they couldn't do this project, but I wonder if they would be open to verification in the future. So I wonder if that's information, even if it's not available to the public, that the council could be in conversation with the developer and say, hey, how much of this fee could you handle or not handle toward affordable housing? So just food for thought as you all are going forward on these discussions on these fees. Thanks so much.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for having public comment, afternoon public comment. That's very nice of you guys, respecting that. Thank you. Good luck to yourselves that you really have to address affordable housing and gentrification issues, the previous item. Good luck on those efforts. An open subject matter, make it open as possible. For myself, at public comment time, I offered some pretty heavy words yesterday about the future of the Ukraine area that, I need to give Ukraine its due. They deserve their part of the country as well, and they deserve a future of a large port area themselves. And I hope that can be respected as part of the negotiation process. I don't know if I relish the fact of Russia having so much of a large port area, but I respect that. I think there can be a ways that both sides can negotiate a future that they can both have port areas in the future, and that I'm really upset that Russia had to go to war in the first place, because I felt they could have done a peaceful dialogue negotiation process without having to go to war. I'm pretty upset with Russia, to me, to describe their use of fossil fuels that clouded their judgment, I feel. And so I do have my upsetness at Russia, to be clear. With that said, just a reminder of the work of the city of Berkeley and San Diego towards the ideas of, they're really, in the past year, their communities have been really upset with them over streetlight technology and ALPRs and downtown kiosk data collection things. They're really trying to make up to them with good civil protection practices within that data collection and ALPR use. Good luck how San Jose can do the same.
Paul?
I am literally astounded, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe, that we're following the agenda as written. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's taken 5 years to get to this point, and so this is definitely a day to mark down and note. A statistical fact that can never be challenged by this city, because it's the truth. From 2016 until this quarter, 95 to 115% of market rate housing goals have been met year over year, quarter over quarter. At the same time, in the same time period, the threshold of 25% of ELI, VLI, affordable housing, however you want to define it, put it this way, the rest of us has never broken 25%. That threshold is never broken. At the State of the Union address, the mayor of San Jose stood up and said specifically that the people that are in the creeks, the people that are living homeless now, it is not their fault, nor is it their responsibility. It is the failures of myself and this council, end quote. Okay, and the way that this council talks about that statistic and literally ignores it when the time comes when you are morally, ethically, and legally responsible to respond to that particular statistic in the way that you administer policy, in the way that you craft policy, and in the way that you legislate the laws in this city. I mean, this is very basic. Someone like me with my education level, which is 7th grade, should not be able to come to these meetings and be able to see right through you and be able to talk to you in the way that I do. I don't enjoy this.
Back to council.
Okay, meeting's adjourned until 6 o'clock. Thanks, everyone.